is going to tell you now. Okay, so this is how I want to start this. I think that kind of each guru out there is basically telling you what the secret is to be better. Like the bodybuilding guys are like, you need to lift more. This is the secret to everything. There's diet people and they're like, it's keto. Keto is the secret to your diet. There are yogis and they're like stretching, opening chakras. I actually don't know what the yogis are saying, but everybody's trying to tell you what the secret is. And there are interesting things within each of them, but I don't think each one individually is the secret. But there is a new secret that's been coming out recently that I've enjoyed watching on IG and YouTube, as proliferated probably most obviously by Ben Patrick, knees over the toes guy lately. It's been around there for a long time, but I want to go over the secret of capacity today, the secret of volume. Where does it start? Where does it end? Where's the spectrum? How does this fit into working out and getting you better? Is it the secret that you've missed this whole time? I don't want to answer it right now, but yes, obviously. Welcome to the Anatomy of Therapy. I'm Dr. John Cybulski here with Bobby Riley in always sunny Iceland right now. Is it like the longest day ever over there or whatever now?
Yeah, that was yesterday, right?
Oh, dang. Yeah. You get like 1 hour of darkness.
Yeah, I think it's 22 hours of light.
That's bananas, man. But anyways, secret of capacity. Bobby brought this up, and we've got some exercises we're going to show you today. Which one do you want to start with here, Bobby? Like, so what made you think of this? Actually, let's kind of get into that first. The secret of capacity. I mean, it's not a secret, but yeah.
Yeah, it made me think to talk about this or to go into this because I often show videos like the one you see here, especially the guy with the blocks under his feet. Mm-hmm. I often show this clip to patients of mine, and even people that have no business doing this, and I do this to say to them, this is what's possible.
Right.
That's it. I say, okay. First, I probably went and made them check the reverse Nordic curl, for example, and I saw that they struggled to go back 10 degrees without either bending their hips or wiggling their core or cheating somehow, or they have no strength to do it. And then I say, okay, but who does a reverse Nordic curl in the general public? Like nobody. So unless this is your thing, so you have to give them perspective. So I say, here's a guy. I mean, he's obviously like a gymnast and very, very good at what he does, but he's, slightly unassuming. He looks fit and he's doing this. And I go, you have maybe no idea how difficult that is. And he's making it look very, very, very simple. And I said, this is what's possible. Now, you never need to do this. You never, ever, ever need to do this. But the point is to show them,
like, you can be out of pain without having, like, you don't have to do this to be out of pain, right? Is that what you're saying?
Right. I'm sure we can train cheetahs to be extremely good at something, right? But they don't. To be a good cheetah that it's healthy and lives its full life, the trick is not relevant to their health. Sure. So, like, people doing fingertip planches and really, really amazing stuff on Instagram, it's only for performance. It's only for the high end. There's at some point where the returns on your investment of time is probably diminishing. And for them, it's part of their sport. It's part of the thing they love. That's probably why they're so good at it. But I'm saying, like, no human probably needs to do this at all. And what I mean by is whatever the guy with the blocks on, feet on his blocks are showing you. Now, maybe should you be able to come close to this in a perfect world? Maybe yes. But like I'm saying, for the general public, you don't need to do this. What you might need to do is a little bit closer to what Ben Patrick's doing. And you probably don't ever need to put your body on the floor or on the ground, by the way.
Right.
But the point is find wherever your starting point is and move forward.
Right.
So if you're only able to descend 10 degrees, which are 20, like where Ben Patrick is right there, where you pause 20 degrees.
Yeah, I'll come back.
I see that all the time, that's it. That's where they can go. So then you got the question of, okay, well, why is it important that I go further than this?
Right.
Well, I say, well, this is telling us stuff. This is telling us clues about your core capacity, your anterior chain capacity, your knee health, your ankle health. Sometimes their ankles hurt just to try to do this.
Right.
So the thing is to say, here's what's possible. Here's where you are.
Right.
Are you so low in capacity that it's setting you up for possible catastrophe? That's the main question. Not to optimize and put you in the far right of the spectrum. It's to say, let's just move to the right. That's it.
Right. I mean,
especially in the injury-prone population or the injured athlete.
Right. I mean, so like the question we get in the clinic often, I think that this helps to answer is like, why am I hurting? What happened here? Because so many of these injuries that musculoskeletal people are treating, and I'm sure trainers are seeing in the gym, is like, I didn't really do anything. And yet my back is hurting, yet my knee is hurting, something like that, right? Like, what the hell happened? And they're asking you to look into a crystal ball and tell them they're sitting too much, or they, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know. They're just getting old. They're just fat. There'll be whatever thing is kind of in their head. But the secret that we're kind of it's not a secret. The one revealing today is capacity. And your capacity wears down in some area and will kind of break. If you bend a stick too many times, it will snap, right? And certain things have more capacity than others. And so I do think like these reverse Nordics will kind of reveal where some of these like incapacities are to start off with, and show you what is possible in terms of where your capacity could be. Now, like Bobby was saying, you don't have to go all the way this way, but you need to know that your body does have the capacity to do stuff like this. And so it's just opening that discussion for capacity, for building capacity, for building strength in some of these positions. And then again, like I think we've talked about this in earlier episodes, like every test is an exercise, every exercise is a test. These things kind of reveal where your incapacities or where you have a smaller capacity for things. Is that where you're going? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you can take the adjective, you can throw an adjective after like a body part, for example. So you can say hip mobility or hip stability or hip strength.
Yeah.
Whatever adjective you want to throw after it. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of say like, well, hip mobility equals its capability, right?
Sure.
And capability is capability, capacity equals. So like, for example, if you don't have the movement, then you've lost the capability. Right. If you've lost capability, so just think, if you've lost capability or movement capacity, then you automatically have compensation. Right. And compensation leads to things like rigidity, torque, overload, asymmetry, dysesthesia, like just loss of sensation, because right and left just feels so different that you have a hard time sensing things like, for sure, like a big toe or you only overload the outside of your foot and you get a fifth ray fracture when you run, because you have a right and left that they don't have a corpus callosum, basically. They are not interacting with each other. So yeah, I mean, that's the idea. So the real reason to look at if you have an Instagram and you follow people that do kind of amazing things, is not to mimic them unless that's really what your passion is. Right. It's really just sometimes I think it's an eye opener to say, this is what's possible. You can look at it from any lens. Like we typically look at it through movement, capacity, and health, what looks healthy to us, which is subjective somewhat and somewhat objective. Sure. But we can also look at it from a strength perspective. If somebody can deadlift 900 pounds and you go, well, my deadlift is 150, you immediately have perspective. Now, why would you deadlift 900 pounds if you don't compete in weightlifting? Like, I have no idea, or powerlifting. No. But then you say like, well, is my strength capacity in the realm of what I want to do with my life? So, if your job, if you have a bunch of kids and you're always picking them up, and you also have a garden and you're moving a wheelbarrow around and you're always lifting stuff and you like to do masonry work with bricks and stuff, it's probably in your interest to have a strong back and to pick stuff up. And And if you just want to be the human that's floating on the chair, like in the Wall-E movie when they're on the spaceship, you still need some capacity, and you need like cardiovascular capacity, you need lymphatic capacity, you need, you have to have some kind of cognitive capacity to think.
Right.
And so and a lot of this, they're all on spectrums, right?
Yeah.
So, and some of the spectrums are a bit blurry, like nutrition. Like, man, that's a very complicated subject.
Right.
So, but in our field, we're saying simply like, if you cannot descend backwards at all in a reverse Nordic curl,
Yeah.
chances are that you can just jump into some kind of CrossFit program or a local calisthenic kind of boot camp club and not experience patellar tendonitis or Achilles tendonitis or
Right.
low back pain is kind of high,
Yeah.
and that's where, like, that's the whole thing about, if you don't have the capability, then therefore you have compensation, and compensation leads to things like torque and impingement and pain. So therefore, when you don't have the capability and you're trying to do something beyond your capacity,
Mhm.
we are not surprised that you are in pain, right?
Right.
So the goal is to give an idea of how to progress through these things, and I think that's
Right.
kind of what we're trying to stand for, is
Yeah.
to say, okay, there's no one trick like you were hinting at. It's not like you just got to do yoga and your back pain is fixed.
Right.
That is throwing darts in the dark.
Yeah.
Well, what we're trying to say is you have to find where you may be super strong but have no mobility,
Right.
or something like this, and therefore you have to attack whatever the lack of capacity is.
For sure. I agree with that wholeheartedly. We were texting earlier this week and I was mentioning, I said it in a stupid way first, but there's this saying, the tail wagging the dog. And I think a lot of times, especially with IG stuff, especially with seeing cool exercises where people are doing fascinating things, like people are like, I need to do this exercise to feel better. And that's really not at all even what we're saying here. It's because people are like, I need to do a 2-finger planche or a muscle up kind of pull up thing. And that's not the case. We need to, if you're talking about throwing darts in the dark, we need to figure out where that target is first. Is it, masonry? Is it, like you said, gardening? Is it carrying your son on a walk? And then going backwards from that piece, because then, I mean, if you see some of these movements and you're just like, okay, I'll never be able to do some of that. That's the first thought that most people say, and understandably so. You do not, like Bobby was saying in the beginning, this is why I was saying, you do not need to be able to touch your head all the way back, right? You can go 15, 20 degrees, but if this builds a capacity that is directed towards something in your life, right? A daily habit that you need, then we get the motivation, the buy-in from the client, from the patient to kind of do these, where you make that connection between the two. Like, so just going back to like more nuts and bolts of these movements, like, what is it that they are trying? So they are building capacity. The secret is capacity for this one, right? We're just talking about capacity. It is a category in movement, right? There's orthopedics, there's your cranial sacral biomechanics, there's the TMJ closing, but you're misaligned. That's what the chiropractor's secret is, right? But like, what are the capacities these reverse Nordics are trying to build in? We'll kind of go through that and then maybe wrap up. But like, I was giving this exercise, I gave this exercise like 5 times yesterday. And I gave subtly various different pieces of it, but like, what capacities are you trying to build in? Because capacity in general, yes, but more specifically, how do these kind of connect towards the common man?
Yeah, let me come right back to the Nordic curl, but it's still on your same point, which is, we'll be specific with the Nordic curl in a second, but the depressing thing to me personally, that I've had to deal with, but also the depressing thing I see with patients and clients, is the withdrawal from pleasure. And I don't mean the hedonic pleasure. I mean more like the pleasure of the thing that they enjoy to do.
Sure.
From a physical standpoint, whether it's intimacy or running or jumping or whatever.
Yeah.
or just being able to, have to pull back from playing with their kids, or they have to quit running because they have bad knees, or they can't play basketball anymore because their knees hurt. I mean, hear this one all the time.
Mhm.
And that's a little depressing. And sometimes that's true. Like, okay, now's the time to stop boxing, right? Or whatever it is. Like you're done now. But that's honestly, I think that's quite rare. I
Yeah.
think if they took, like, you can see it in Ben Patrick, his whole story, his whole shtick, this whole thing that people really relate to is the fact that he couldn't do something, had too much pain, couldn't play basketball, was on the bench, and was able to. Now he's showing you stuff that 99% of people can't do. So what was the magic there? And and if you ask him, he says there's no magic. This is
Mhm.
just a thought out, methodical process, educated stance on things. And he broke it down in pieces, and then he took step by step steps to basically to resolve his issues and to move
Right.
forward. So that's the depressing thing, is the withdrawal from something. So one of the real easy ways is to say, like, what is it that you just stopped doing recently or in the last 10 years because it causes you issues? Or you can say, like, what are you afraid of? Like,
Mm.
I'm afraid if a dog tried to attack me right now, because I can't run, I'd be really scared to sprint, because I feel like I would pull everything the moment I try to sprint.
Yeah.
Or when I wake up in the morning, the scariest thing is X. If it's like to lift, bend over and lift any weight in the morning because your back is so sketchy, or to just bend your knees, like that's tough. Like, you got to lower yourself onto the toilet with your hands.
Right.
You got all these clues to say where your dysfunction is. And then you can start to head into things like a movement that will try to address that, like a reverse Nordic curl.
Right.
So being specific to the reverse Nordic curl,
Yeah.
I think, when I first learned this exercise, to me, it was just like, I learned it as like what it's supposed to do, which I think is not the right way. So when I first saw this, I saw it as a post of like, bulletproof your knees.
Right.
So I go, reverse Nordic curls, bulletproof your knees in
Yeah.
my mind.
Sure.
And that's not really the right way to think about it, because maybe it doesn't bulletproof your knee. maybe the moment you start doing this, you get knee pain actually.
Yeah.
You have such a asymmetrical torque from your quads that is just pulling on the kneecap and rubbing, and now it just hurts.
Right.
So, but what you can say is, what is being able to do the reverse Nordic curl like these guys tell you that they have?
Right.
I think that's the better way to look at it. So they have extensible quads, pliable quads that are also strong.
Right.
They have knees that are healthy because they're smashing them into full flexion. So they must not have a bucket handle tear of their meniscus.
Sure.
They, you know what I mean? The meniscus must be okay. The joint doesn't full of effusion and fluid. They're able to compress it.
Right.
Right. They also are able, because they're pliable in their quads, they're able to keep especially the guy on the left is I actually think he's doing it quite better than to Ben. Sorry, Ben Patrick, but Ben's arching kind of quite a bit at the end, and that's because it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see him kind of do a back bend there. So my point is that the other guy is able to keep his pelvis basically neutral the entire time as as those quads are lengthening. So his eccentric control, his eccentric pliability is great. His core strength is unbelievable. If you don't think this is difficult, go try it, and good luck doing what he's doing.
Right.
So it's everything from, I mean, these guys also have good ankles. They're pointing their feet.
Great ankles. Yeah.
And they're smashing them. And to most people, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt either the posterior, part of the joint of the ankle or something. So, but most of the time, you're going to start bending your hips because you don't have quad pliability. You're going to start arching your back because you don't have core stability. Your feet or knees are going to start sliding in and out on the floor because you have VLs that are too tight, or compared to the medial quads, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, that's just the start of it. But to me, learning like this movement fixes this is a kind of a wrong mentality.
Right.
So, like, if you take what's the other video we have?
Oh yeah, this guy.
And those of you guys listening, just watch this on YouTube and you'll see.
Tell it, Bobby.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's staying completely. He's actually flexing now with one hip in full extension of like a wall stretch, and the other leg is in full flexion. I mean, most people cannot do this at all. right?
No.
Usually with their foot on the floor and you have them posterior tilt, they start to arch their back. And much
Right.
less if you tell them to flex forward like he does in this first part. I mean, I don't know if you want to comment on this one, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I've started to change and say, let me try this. And then, I mean, I can't even get into this position. Okay, let me put my feet way lower. Okay, I still can't do it. Let me put my feet on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do it, but it's like an 8 out of a 10. Okay, you can see that you do not have the same capacities as this guy.
Right. So like when we see these exercises and people think they're cool to do, and they are cool to do, by the way, like if you just want to be able to do them, that's a fine goal as well. I have no problem with that. But and look, there's a whole lot of social proof on the internet with that sort of thing. That's a good way to signal who you are as a person. And there is a good, I don't think everybody's like that. I think Ben truly does want to help people with his knee. I think he's like, I figured something out with my knee and I want to share this with you. I think that's one of his secrets. He has flipped the tail and the dog wagging. He's like, I'm not showing you cool exercises. These have nothing to do with me doing cool things on the internet with my shirt off in sunny California. This has to do with, I think this will help your knee because it helped mine. And I think that mentality is the way in, and then these concepts, these strategies come far second, so Bobby's shooting darts in the dark. Turn on the light, establish a target, and then see what tools you have to help them get towards that target. And I think the reverse Nordic is a target, is a dart rather, that will help throw the dart towards the target. This analogy is going quickly, but it is one that has a lot of tools with it. The main thing I see with this is creating compression in places that people previously cannot. So if we're just going to go back to it, it's for me, we can just keep it as simple as, sitting is a problem. Okay. And when we sit, Bobby kind of mentioned it earlier when he was talking about a corpus callosum, was a great reference. I barely got it. So if you didn't get it, don't worry. But being able to sense pieces in your body. So he was talking about the fifth ray and kind of hurting the toe. It's because they don't sense their feet. It's because they can't sense particular parts of their body. And so they over torque and overcompensate in places they do, like their low back, right? No one really feels like the ability to do this exercise means that you can create tension through the front of your quads, high up in your quads, in your anterior core, in all sorts of places where previously, because you're sitting right now, your anterior side is kind of turned off, as it were. We can't create tension there. And so you create tension in easy places like your spine, like your discs. And so creating the capacity to create tension on the anterior side from the quads all the way up towards, the abs and the chest. Like, I actually think one of the things about, the one that you showed, there he is. Oh, let me share it again. Gosh, I'm producing this whole thing. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing one of the things with this exercise, with our Belgian friend here, using the band, right? Using this band and pulling it back. I actually like it because I think it helps create tension further north in the back, in the shoulders, in the chest, in the upper body. Obviously he can create tension through his quads and through his anterior hips, right? But I think being able to actually use the band, and you can obviously see Ben is able to create tension in the upper body, a la his abs. But being able to use this band does, I think, create tension through the upper part of the torso. And so you can kind of pull his shoulders back and feel those abs creating tension as he goes into extension. This is a whole other concept. We're really talking about capacities today. These are a little bit more specific. Consider adding this. I want to wrap this up really quickly, but like, of all the things that you can do in a workout program and all the things that you can do to give your patients, your clients, benefit, there are great exercises. You can find the Katie Claires and the Physio Fixes and the E3 rehabs. They've got 10 sliders of 10 great exercises, and they are great. Don't get me wrong. I do think They're wonderful little programs. However, and they actually do say it if you read into their stuff. Most people look at them and they're like, let me try this cool exercise. Oh, this fixes snapping hip. I'm going to do this. Katie Claire said so. And you should, by the way. One of the things that people often overlook is reading Katie Claire's and reading Stacy's bio, where they're like, you got to do this 3 times a day for 5 weeks. And I think capacity is a very underlooked thing. And I'm glad that it's kind of coming back these days. Fair?
Yeah. I would just end with like,
yeah,
this episode to me, or this YouTube video, is basically, I think, a preface to what, you'll see from us coming out, which is more to establish less so on the here's the plethora of ideas that you can try, and
right.
more of like the epistemology, or understanding the concepts behind why you would do anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's what I want this kind of episode, or this discussion, to be, is a preface towards, in the future, it'd be nice for people to say, well, I can rely on these guys to help me break down not what this exercise is supposed to fix, but what this exercise tells you.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned this a lot, like the test is the fix, or the test is the rehab, right? So when you test the reverse Nordic curl and it gives you a bunch of alarm bells are going off, like they can't do any of this stuff, doesn't mean you have to necessarily give them the reverse Nordic curl, but you have to start addressing all the reasons why they can't do one.
Right.
And this is it's funny, because when you come out of school, you want to know all the answers. Like, how do I use Poliquins, I scrape their jaw with this tool, and then now their hamstring is released. That's the stuff you want to know when you're 1 year out.
Sure.
But when you realize, we're not 25 years out, but we've been out for a while. And what you realize after a while is, it's like, nah, what I really want to know is just the most efficacious way to slowly gain resilience over time, because all the tricks are temporary. 99% of this, there are some maybe sensory tricks that help you find things. I do believe in some of them, but most of it is like hip mobility, like these things you have to earn. Why do you think there's a million people following FRC and stuff?
Yeah.
And on your point about Instagram versus reality, Andreo Spina, who started functional range conditioning and systems, he's always saying, like, I never did this so you guys could learn how to do fancy handstands. Like, I don't do those. Like, it's just that my followers do all this stuff. Yeah. He's just like, I just want to be able to wake up, stand out of bed, palm the floor, grapple if I had to in the first 5 seconds, do a cartwheel. You know what I mean? And what I think what we're trying to stand for is to say, we don't want you to like lose the things that you enjoy doing, or we don't want your patients to be falling off for that reason. And you say, well, okay, here's a way you can look at it. And if you look at it through the capacity lens, things will start to make a lot more sense than pure, like just diagnostic pathology perspective, Yeah. Which is how the literature shows you. You do, if you have a labral tear, you do this. You do 5 sets of this, and then you do this, and that stuff's all important. You got to know it all, and that's the downside. Like, sometimes you got to follow the protocol from James Wilkes or Andrews Institute for ACLs. But there comes a point where you're done with that, and then you go, well, yeah, but their knees still look sketchy, and they still can't single leg squat, and they still get knee pain if they land the wrong way, and they're a basketball player. That's a problem. So. Yeah.
No, I agree. I like the direction that you're talking about. That is where we're going. There are cool exercises. What's the why behind the exercise? Why should you do them? If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Should have said it a long time ago. Or if you're listening, leave a review. Wait, what were you saying? Don't leave a review. Bobby says don't leave a review. He doesn't want you to leave a review. It's not useful. It won't make you feel better. Thank y'all so much for listening. Tune in next time. Y'all have a great day. Peace.
Thanks. See ya.